Chulim, also known as Chulym, Chulym-Turkic, Küerik, Chulym Tatar or Melets Tatar, is the language of the Chulyms, the name the people use to refer to themselves, and also to the language, Izos, literally, self or own. It is also spoken by the Kacik. This name originated from a now extinct tribe. Description: the language is closely related to the Shor and Kyrgyz languages. Though all these are considered by some as one language, the Oz speakers themselves do not believe this to be the case. Chulim comprises distinct dialects, corresponding to locations along the Chulim River, Lower Chulim, Middle Chulim, and Upper Chulim. Chulim is a moribund language and will most likely be extinct by the 2030s. It is listed in the UNESCO Red Book of Endangered Languages. During the filming of the 2008 American documentary film The Linguists Greg Anderson and K. David Harrison interviewed and recorded 20 speakers and estimated there may be between 35 to 40 fluent speakers out of a community of overall 426 members. The youngest fluent speaker was 54 at the time of filming. The speakers are located in Russia, in southwestern Siberia, north of the Altai Mountains, in the basin of the Chulim River, a tributary of the Ob River. The Turkic, northeastern villages where the greatest concentrations of Oz live are Belaya, Novo Shumilovo, Oziorno, and Tegulde, in eastern Tomsk Oblast, and Pasekno in western Krasnoyarsk Krai. All speakers are bilingual in Russian. In Soviet times, speakers of the language suffered as children were discouraged from or punished for using the language in schools. In a process of language devalorization. History: Chulim was once a widely spoken language, but its history consists of multiple waves of colonization and linguistic assimilation, first into Turkic, and now into Russian. Quote, "This shift becomes even more evident when one studies the structure of the language, which is distinguishable from other Siberian Turkic languages. Now, Middle Chulim has become endangered due to the Russian hostility that occurred during the mid-20th century. It was during the 1940s, when Joseph Stalin was in power, that there was an establishment of a program called the Second Mother Tongue Policy. This included the act of rounding up children and sending them to boarding schools, where they learned the nation's language and were forced not to speak their own native tongue. The program quickly caused the community to abandon the Chulim language. Soon enough, the language became associated with negative connotations and thus it gained an inferior and low social status. According to the film, The Linguists, a Chulim native speaker, Vasya, claimed that Chulim was viewed as a gutter language, and the language was no longer passed on to the children. Furthermore, in the 1970s, the Chulim community was forced into Russian-speaking settlements, where they had to adapt and speak the Russian language in order to move up in the social ladder and have greater chances of economic prosperity. Soon enough, Chulim speakers were abandoning the native tongue. This caused the community to lose a great number of speakers and the language traditions. Not only were the Chulim people forced to abandon the language, but also the government dropped them from the census statistics as a distinct ethnic group after 1959. Under the eyes of the government, the Chulim population was seen as non-existent, and not enough to earn itself a place as a different national unit. It was not until 1999 that the community regained the status as a separate, ethnic entity. Thus, with Russia's urbanization and domination of the national language, Chulim's chances of survival were slim. Documentation: The fact that Chulym had no written indigenous tradition made it even more difficult for the language to endure. It was not until David Harrison and Greg Anderson from the documentary that they began using scientific methods to document the Chulym language. The two linguists highlighted the efforts made to preserve the Chulym language and record what language loss meant to the community. The two traveled to Tegday, a small village where they were able to find 3 Chulym speakers. It was there that they met Vasya, who was the youngest native Chulym speaker at the time. The process of documentation included sitting down in private with the speakers and recording them during the interview. Accordingly, in collaboration with Vasya and the other 2 speakers, the 2 linguists were able to list words in Chulym such as numbers, greetings, a wool-spinning song, aphorisms, and bear and moose hunting stories. They were also able to collect personal narratives, spontaneous conversations, body parts, colors, fauna, flora and kin terms, along with instructions on how to use certain tools such as fur-covered skis and wooden canoes. The 2 linguists often sat with the natives and asked them to count in correspondence with the fingers, revealing how Chulym uses a 12-base instead of a 10-base number system. They also asked the natives to interpret specific sentences, with the intention to identify any Chulym rules of grammar. With this, the linguists battled to offset the negative connotations of and attitudes towards the Chulym language.